The smoke still rose from the burning buildings when Commander Zexthai stepped through the ruins. His 6 arms moved with practiced ease as he checked his weapon and scanned the destroyed human settlement. The attack had been quick and brutal, just like all the others. Zexthai was proud of his work. His chitinous shell gleamed dark purple in the alien sun, and his 4 eyes moved independently as they searched for any remaining threats. The hegemony had sent him to this frontier world to teach these primitive humans a lesson. They had dared to settle on a planet the hegemony wanted for mining operations. "Commander," called one of his soldiers, a young officer with bright yellow markings on his shell, "we found no survivors. The humans fought hard, but they had no real weapons. Just simple projectile guns and some kind of explosive devices." Zexthai nodded with satisfaction. These humans were always the same. They built their little settlements on worlds they had no right to claim, then fought with weapons that belonged in a museum. The hegemony had been expanding through this part of space for decades, and humans were just another obstacle to remove. The settlement had been small, maybe 200 people at most. They had built their homes from local wood and stone like savages. No energy shields, no proper defenses, no orbital stations, just simple buildings that burned easily when hit with plasma charges. "Sir," another soldier called from across the settlement, "you need to see this." Zexthai walked over, his heavy footsteps crushing the scattered remains of human belongings. Books made from actual paper, tools made from metal instead of energy constructs, and toys carved from wood. It amazed him that any species could be so backward and still achieve space travel. The soldier was standing near a collapsed building that had once been some kind of dwelling. Part of the roof had fallen in, creating a small cave-like space underneath. "There's something moving in there, sir. Too small to be an adult human." Zexthai used 2 of his arms to lift away a large piece of wooden beam. Underneath, curled up in a ball, was a small human child. The creature couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old by human standards. It had pale skin, brown hair, and the strangest green eyes Zexthai had ever seen. Most surprising of all, the child wasn't crying or screaming like Zexthai expected. Instead, it looked up at him with those bright green eyes and seemed completely calm. "Interesting," Zexthai muttered. He had studied human behavior during his military training. Human children were supposed to be emotional and irrational. This one just watched him quietly. The child was clutching something in its small hands. Zexthai reached down with one of his smaller arms and gently pried the object loose. It was a carved wooden animal, some kind of 4-legged creature with a long tail. The carving was actually quite detailed, showing skill that surprised him. "You're coming with me, little human," Zexthai said in Galactic Standard, not expecting the child to understand. To his complete shock, the child responded in perfect Galactic Standard. "You don't understand what you've done." Zexthai's 4 eyes all focused on the child at once. How could this primitive creature speak the language of the hegemony? Galactic Standard was taught only in advanced educational facilities. No human settlement this backward should have access to such learning. "How do you know our language?" he demanded. The child sat up slowly, still holding the wooden toy that Zexthai had given back. "Everyone learns Galactic Standard. Don't your children?" The question was so innocent, yet it made Zexthai uncomfortable. Of course, hegemony children learned Galactic Standard. It was the language of civilization, of advanced species, but humans weren't supposed to be advanced. "What is your name?" Zexthai asked. "Tommy," the child replied simply. Zexthai looked around at his soldiers, who were all staring at the child with confusion. A human child who spoke Galactic Standard was unexpected. This could be valuable to the hegemony's research division. They were always looking for specimens to study, especially ones that showed unusual characteristics. "Sir, what should we do with it?" asked the young officer. Zexthai made his decision quickly. "We take it with us. The research division will want to examine this one. A human child who speaks Galactic Standard could provide useful information about their species." He reached down and lifted Tommy with one of his middle arms. The child was surprisingly light and again showed no fear. Most human children would be screaming and fighting by now. This one just looked around with curiosity. "Where are we going?" Tommy asked as Zexthai carried him toward the landing zone where their ships waited. "To the hegemony core worlds," Zexthai replied. He saw no reason to lie. "You'll be studied by our scientists. They'll want to know how a primitive human learned our language." Tommy was quiet for a moment, then said something that made Zexthai's blood run cold. You shouldn't take me away from here. Why not? Tommy looked up at him with those strange green eyes. Because my family won't like it. Zexthai almost laughed. Your family is dead, child. We destroyed this entire settlement. Not this family, Tommy said quietly. My other family. Before Zexthai could ask what that meant, they reached the landing zone. 3 hegemony assault ships sat on the cleared ground, their hulls still warm from atmospheric entry. Soldiers were loading supplies and equipment, preparing for departure. Zexthai carried Tommy up the ramp of his command ship. The interior was typical hegemony design, all smooth metal surfaces and efficient lighting. Everything built for function rather than comfort. Prepare a containment cell, he ordered one of his officers. Class 3 security. This specimen may be more dangerous than it appears. Dangerous? The officer looked at the small human child with confusion. Sir, it's just a youngling. A youngling that speaks galactic standard, Zexthai reminded him. Until we know how that's possible, we treat it as a potential threat. As they prepared the cell, Zexthai found himself studying Tommy more carefully. The child was looking around the ship with obvious interest, taking in all the details. Its green eyes seemed to be memorizing everything. Have you ever been on a spaceship before? Zexthai asked. Yes, Tommy replied simply. Impossible. This settlement had no spacecraft. Tommy looked up at him. I didn't say the ship was from the settlement. Another chill ran down Zexthai's spine. What kind of human child was this? The containment cell was ready within minutes. It was a small room with transparent aluminum walls, designed to hold dangerous prisoners. Zexthai placed Tommy inside and activated the security field. You'll be fed and given water, he told the child. Cooperate with our scientists and you won't be harmed. Tommy sat down on the simple bench inside the cell and placed his wooden toy on his lap. Commander Zexthai, he said, somehow knowing the name that had never been spoken in his presence. How do you know my name? Tommy smiled for the first time since they'd met. It wasn't the innocent smile of a human child. It was something much older and more knowing. I know a lot of things, Tommy said, including the fact that you've made a very big mistake. As the ship lifted off from the planet's surface, Zexthai couldn't shake the feeling that the small human child was right. Something about this entire situation felt wrong. But he was a soldier of the hegemony and he had his orders. Behind him in the containment cell, Tommy sat quietly and began to wait. The journey to the hegemony core worlds would take 3 days through hyperspace. Commander Zexthai had made this trip many times before, but never with such an unusual prisoner. Tommy sat in his containment cell with the same calm expression he'd worn since capture. He ate the simple food they gave him without complaint and slept peacefully at night. Most prisoners, especially young ones, would be crying or screaming by now. This human child acted like he was on a vacation. On the second day, strange things began to happen. Lieutenant Kexra was monitoring communications when she noticed something odd. Commander, she called from her station. We're receiving signals from deep space. Zexthai walked over to look at her screens. What kind of signals? Unknown origin, sir. The computer can't identify the source, but they're coming from impossible distances. The signals would need to travel faster than light to reach us from where they appear to be coming from. Zexthai frowned. Are they directed at us? I don't think so, sir. They seem to be general broadcasts. But Commander, Kexra looked confused. They're in human languages. That's impossible. There are no human settlements in deep space. Their technology can barely manage local system travel. Kexra played one of the signals through the ship's speakers. Strange sounds filled the bridge. Musical tones and rhythmic patterns that meant nothing to hegemony ears. But underneath the alien music, there were voices speaking in what the computer identified as various human languages. How many of these signals are we detecting? Zexthai asked. Dozens, sir. Maybe hundreds. They're coming from all directions. Zexthai felt that familiar chill again. He ordered Kexra to record everything and walked down to the containment level to check on their prisoner. Tommy was sitting cross-legged on his bench, still holding his wooden toy. But now there was something different about him. His green eyes were closed and he seemed to be listening to something. Can you hear those signals? Zexthai asked. Tommy opened his eyes and smiled. You mean the music? Yes, it's beautiful. My sister always loved that song. Your sister is dead. We destroyed your settlement. Not that sister, Tommy said gently. I have lots of sisters. And brothers. And cousins, he paused. Aunts and uncles, too. Really, it's a very big family. Before Zextai could respond to this confusing statement, his communicator buzzed. Commander to the bridge immediately. When he arrived, the entire bridge crew was staring at their screens in shock. Report, Zextai ordered. Navigation Officer Veltan turned to face him. Sir, our star charts are showing something impossible. Look at this. The main screen displayed their current position and route to the hegemony core worlds. But now, scattered throughout supposedly empty space were markers indicating human settlements. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. This has to be a computer error, Zextai said. Run a full diagnostic. We did, sir. 3 times. The system insists these readings are accurate. Zextai studied the display. If it was real, it showed human colonies spread across vast areas of space that the hegemony believed to be uninhabited. Some of the markers indicated settlements on worlds the hegemony had surveyed and found empty. How is this possible? He muttered. There's more, sir, Veltan continued. The computer is detecting massive energy signatures from some of these locations. Power outputs that exceed our largest installations. The bridge fell silent. Every officer was thinking the same thing. If humans had this kind of capability, why had all their encounters with them shown such primitive technology? Zextai returned to the containment level, his mind racing with questions. Tommy was now standing at the transparent wall of his cell watching him approach. You're confused, the child observed. How are you doing this? Zextai demanded. How are you affecting our systems? Tommy tilted his head like he was genuinely puzzled. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. Then explain the signals. Explain the star charts showing human settlements where there should be none. Maybe your charts were wrong, Tommy suggested innocently. Zextai wanted to grab the child and shake answers out of him, but the containment field prevented any contact. What aren't you telling me? Tommy was quiet for a long moment, then spoke carefully. Commander, can I ask you a question? What? When your people first achieved space travel, did you immediately spread across the galaxy and build cities on every world you found? The question was so unexpected that Zextai actually considered it. No. It took thousands of years to expand our territory. And during that time, were there hegemony families who chose to live simply? Maybe on frontier worlds, away from the big cities. Of course. Some families prefer rural life. Tommy nodded. Now imagine someone found one of those rural families. Imagine they saw simple homes and basic tools and decided your entire species was primitive. Would they be right? The implications hit Zextai like a physical blow. You're saying the settlements we've been attacking are like your rural families, Tommy finished. People who chose to live simply, who liked building things with their hands and growing their own food, who taught their children old skills like wood carving. He held up his toy. But simple living doesn't mean simple minds. Zextai felt the deck shift slightly beneath his feet as the ship changed course slightly. On the bridge, alarms began to sound. Commander, to the bridge, came the urgent call. When Zextai arrived, chaos greeted him. Every screen was flashing with new contacts. The navigation officer looked pale. Sir, we're detecting a single ship matching our course and speed. What kind of ship? Unknown design, sir. It's keeping exact pace with us, but... Veltan swallowed hard. Sir, we're traveling at maximum hyperspace velocity. Nothing should be able to match our speed so effortlessly. The main screen showed a sleek vessel unlike anything in the hegemony databases. It was beautiful in a way that hegemony ships were not. Curved and flowing rather than angular and efficient. Are they responding to communications? Zextai asked. Yes, sir. Single message repeating continuously. Put it through. A calm human voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect galactic standard with no accent. Return the child. The message repeated 3 times. Then silence. Zextai stared at the screen. The human ship wasn't threatening them, wasn't demanding surrender or negotiation. Just a simple request, return the child. Sir, what are your orders? Asked Kexra. Zextai thought about Tommy's words. Rural families. Simple living, complex minds. He thought about the signals from deep space and the star charts showing human settlements everywhere. Maintain course, he ordered, though his voice lacked conviction. We proceed to Nexus Prime as planned. But as he watched the human ship keeping perfect pace with them, Zextai couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer the hunters in this situation. Down in the containment cell, Tommy sat peacefully and continued to wait. Sometimes he hummed along with the music that filled the space between stars, and sometimes he just smiled as if he knew a wonderful secret. The wooden toy sat in his lap, and if anyone had looked closely, they might have noticed that it seemed to pulse very faintly with an inner light that had nothing to do with primitive carving techniques. But nobody was looking that closely yet. They would be soon. As Commander Zexthai's fleet approached the Nexus Prime system, home to the hegemony's capital world, the single human ship was still following them. It had been 3 days now, and the mysterious vessel maintained perfect distance and speed without any apparent effort. "Sir," Navigation Officer Veltan called from his station, "we're beginning system approach. Nexus Prime Traffic Control is requesting our arrival status. Tell them we have a priority specimen for the research division," Zexthai replied. He tried to sound confident, but the human ship's presence made him nervous. "Also report the unknown vessel following us." "Already done, sir." Traffic Control acknowledges. They're scrambling a patrol squadron to investigate. Through the bridge's main view screen, Zexthai could see the familiar sight of the Nexus Prime system. 12 planets orbited the massive blue star, with Nexus Prime itself being the fourth world. Orbital stations and defense platforms surrounded the planet like a metal ring. Hundreds of ships moved between the stations in carefully controlled traffic patterns. It was the heart of hegemony civilization, home to billions of citizens and the most powerful military force in known space. Looking at it always filled Zexthai with pride. Today something was different. "Commander," Lieutenant Kexra's voice was tight with stress. "Sir, you need to see this." Zexthai turned to her sensor station. The display showed the Nexus Prime system, but there were far too many contacts on the screen. Ships were appearing from nowhere, dozens of them, then hundreds. "Are those our patrol squadrons?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, sir. Unknown vessels. Same design as the ship that's been following us. They're everywhere." Zexthai stared at the screen. Human ships were materializing throughout the system, not emerging from hyperspace jumps, but simply appearing as if they had been invisible. Sleek, elegant vessels that made hegemony warships look crude by comparison. "How many?" he asked quietly. Kexra's hands shook as she worked her controls. "Current count shows 347 contacts, sir, but more keep appearing." The bridge communication system crackled to life with traffic from Nexus Prime Command. Multiple voices talked over each other in barely controlled panic. Unknown vessels throughout the system. Defense platforms requesting permission to engage. "Admiral Thexmore to all ships, do not fire unless fired upon." Where did they come from? "Sir," Veltan interrupted the chaos. "We're receiving a priority communication from Nexus Prime Command. Admiral Thexmore wants to speak with you directly." The main screen shifted to show the familiar face of Admiral Thexmore, the hegemony's highest military commander. Her usually calm expression showed barely controlled fear. "Commander Zexthai, report your status immediately." "Sir, we are carrying a human prisoner as ordered. The unknown ships have been following us since we left the frontier world." "Following you?" The Admiral's four eyes narrowed. "Commander, we have reports of similar fleets appearing simultaneously around every major hegemony world. Centaur, Kolos, Vex Prime, all of them surrounded by these unknown vessels." Zexthai felt like his legs might give out. "Every major world, sir?" "Every single one. Our entire territory is surrounded by ships we cannot identify, using technology we do not understand." Admiral Thexmore leaned closer to her camera. "Commander, what exactly did you capture on that frontier world?" Before Zexthai could answer, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. The tactical officer shouted over the noise. "Sir, energy spike from the human ships. They're powering weapons. All ships, battle stations." Admiral Thexmore ordered over the communication link, but nothing happened. The human ships simply maintained their positions, surrounding every hegemony vessel and station in the system. No shots were fired, no threats were made. They just waited. "Stand down," came a new voice over the communication system. This voice was calm, speaking perfect galactic standard with the same lack of accent they had heard before. "We have not come to fight. We have come for our family member." Admiral Thexmore's image reappeared on the main screen. "This is Admiral Thexmore of the Hegemony Defense Force. Identify yourself and state your intentions." "I am Captain Sarah, Chen of the Human Confederation vessel Unity. Our intentions are simple, the return of the child you have taken." Zexthai looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. Down in the containment cell, Tommy was probably still sitting peacefully, as if he had expected this all along. "Admiral," Zexthai said carefully, "I recommend we speak with our prisoner before making any decisions." "Agreed. I'm coming aboard your vessel immediately." The trip down to the containment level felt like the longest walk of Zexthai's life. Admiral Thexmore arrived within the hour, accompanied by her senior staff. They all crowded into the observation area outside Tommy's cell. The human child looked exactly the same as when they had captured him, calm, alert, and somehow older than his apparent age. He was still holding his wooden toy. "So," Admiral Thexmore said, studying Tommy carefully, "this is what has brought the greatest fleet ever assembled to our doorstep." Tommy looked up at her politely. "Hello, Admiral." "I'm Tommy." "Indeed. Tommy, are those your people surrounding our worlds?" "Some of them," Tommy replied. "Others are friends and allies. When someone takes a human child, lots of people want to help get them back." Admiral Thexmore's expression darkened. "Are you threatening us, child?" "No," Tommy said simply. "I don't need to threaten anyone. The ships out there aren't here to fight. They're here to take me home. And if we refuse?" Tommy was quiet for a moment, then spoke very carefully. "Admiral, do you have children?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Yes, 2 daughters. If someone took one of your daughters to a faraway place, what would you do?" "I would—" Admiral Thexmore stopped, understanding beginning to dawn in her eyes. "You would find them," Tommy continued gently. "You would bring every resource you had. You would ask friends for help. You would never stop until your daughter was safe." He paused. "That's all that's happening here." Zexthai found his voice. "But the settlements we attacked, they were so primitive. Simple weapons, basic technology." Tommy smiled. "My grandmother likes to grow her own vegetables and build furniture with her hands. That doesn't mean she's primitive. It means she enjoys simple things." He held up his carved toy. "She taught me to carve when I was little. I kept this to remember her." "Your grandmother?" Admiral Thexmore said slowly. "Is she aboard one of those ships?" "Probably. Grandma doesn't like it when people mess with her family." The Admiral turned to Zexthai. "Commander, exactly how many of these primitive settlements have we attacked?" Zexthai checked his mission reports. 17 over the past 6 months, sir. All appeared to be simple farming communities or mining operations." Tommy's expression grew sad. 17 families. The Council of Worlds won't be happy about that." "Council of Worlds?" Admiral Thexmore asked. "The Human Confederation includes about 10,000 settled worlds," Tommy explained matter-of-factly. "Each world sends representatives to the Council. When decisions need to be made that affect all humans, they vote on what to do. 10,000 worlds. The number hit everyone in the room like a physical blow. The hegemony controlled maybe 300 worlds across their entire territory." "That's impossible," Zexthai whispered. Tommy tilted his head. "Why? Humans have been traveling between stars for a very long time. We found lots of nice places to live." Admiral Thexmore was staring at Tommy with something approaching awe. "How long? How long have humans been spacefaring?" "Since before your species discovered fire," Tommy said simply. The containment area fell completely silent. Outside the ship, hundreds of human vessels waited patiently for their answer. Around every hegemony world, similar fleets held position with the same patient readiness. Admiral Thexmore finally broke the silence. "What do you want from us?" Tommy smiled, and for the first time he looked exactly like the young child he appeared to be. "I want to go home. And I think my family wants to have a conversation with your leaders about how neighbors should treat each other." Through the ship's communication system, Captain Chen's voice could be heard making the same request to fleets around every hegemony world. "We request immediate diplomatic contact with your leadership. We have much to discuss." The hegemony High Council chambers had never seen anything like this. The vast circular room designed to hold the representatives of 300 worlds was packed with emergency delegates, military commanders, and government officials. Everyone spoke at once, creating a chaos of voices that echoed off the polished walls. Commander Zexthai stood near the center of the room with Tommy beside him. The human child looked tiny among all the tall, imposing figures of hegemony leadership, but he seemed completely comfortable. He still held his wooden toy and watched everything with those bright green eyes. Admiral Thexmore called for order. "Representatives, we must address this situation calmly. Reports from across hegemony space confirm that every major world is surrounded by human vessels. No hostile actions have been taken, but their message is clear. Council Speaker Vex Thule, the highest civilian authority in the hegemony, stepped forward. His ancient shell bore the scars of many battles, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. We have built our civilization on the principle of strength. We have conquered hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. How is it possible that we never detected a threat of this magnitude? Tommy raised his small hand. Excuse me, Council Speaker. The entire chamber fell silent. A human child, barely tall enough to see over the speaking platform, had just interrupted the most powerful being in hegemony space. You weren't supposed to detect us, Tommy continued politely. We weren't hiding exactly. We just weren't ready to meet you yet. Vexithol's 4 eyes focused on Tommy. Explain. Tommy looked around the chamber, taking in all the staring faces. Can I show you something? Without waiting for permission, he held up his wooden toy. With a gesture so subtle that most of the observers missed it, the carved animal began to change. The wood seemed to flow like liquid, reshaping itself into something that definitely wasn't carved by hand. The toy was now a device that projected a 3-dimensional map above Tommy's head. The hologram showed star systems and trade routes with thousands of points of light representing inhabited worlds. The scale was enormous. The map showed human territory stretching across vast regions of space, dwarfing the hegemony's borders by an incredible margin. Trade routes connected distant galaxies, and the technology required to create such a display was far beyond anything the hegemony possessed. This is human space, Tommy said simply. These are the worlds where my people live. Council Speaker Vexthul stared at the display. Impossible. Our long-range sensors would have detected civilizations of this size. You've been looking for the wrong things, Tommy explained. You search for energy signatures like your own, communication frequencies like your own, ship designs like your own. But humans do things differently. He gestured, and the hologram changed to show various human ships. They were beautiful, flowing designs that looked more grown than built. Their energy signatures were clean and efficient, almost invisible to sensors designed to detect hegemony-style technology. We learned long ago that announcing your presence to strangers can be dangerous, Tommy continued. So we developed ways to live quietly, to explore and expand without attracting attention from species who might not be friendly. Admiral Thexmore stepped forward. If your civilization is so advanced, why allow the hegemony to believe we were the dominant power in this region? Tommy's expression grew thoughtful. Because we hoped you would grow into something better. We've been watching you for a long time. Your species has potential, but you're still young. Still making the mistakes that young civilizations make. Mistakes? Vexthel's voice carried a dangerous edge. Attacking people because they seem weak. Taking what doesn't belong to you. Believing that might makes right. Tommy's voice remained gentle, but his words cut deep. These are things most species do when they first reach the stars. We hoped you would learn better. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted about hegemony, honor, and military might. Several demanded that the human child be silenced for his insults. Tommy waited patiently for the noise to die down, then continued speaking. We've been spacefaring for 12,000 years, he said quietly. In that time, we've met 47 different intelligent species. 31 of them are now friends and allies. 12 chose to avoid contact but maintain peaceful relations. 3 became enemies and were stopped from harming others. The implications of his words sank into the silent chamber. And the remaining species? Vexthul asked. One destroyed itself before we could establish contact, Tommy replied sadly. The hegemony would be number 48. Commander Zexthai found his voice. You said 3 became enemies and were stopped. What does that mean? Tommy looked directly at him. It means we removed their ability to harm others. Their world still exists, their people still live. But they can no longer travel between stars or threaten their neighbors. The threat was delivered so casually, so matter-of-factly, that it took several seconds for everyone to understand what the child had just said. The humans could end the hegemony's spacefaring capability entirely if they chose to. Why are you telling us this? Admiral Thexmore asked. Because we prefer honesty, Tommy replied. My family discussed what to do about the hegemony attacks. Some wanted to simply stop you immediately, like we did with the other aggressive species. But others argued that you deserved a chance to choose a better path. Council Speaker Vexthul was quiet for a long moment. And what would this better path involve? Tommy smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like the young child he appeared to be, learning, growing, joining the community of species that work together instead of fighting each other. He gestured again, and the hologram changed to show something incredible, a massive space station, larger than anything the hegemony had ever imagined. Ships from dozens of different species docked at its ports. The design was clearly human, but modified to accommodate the needs of many different kinds of beings. "This is Harmony Station," Tommy explained. "It's where the Galactic Council meets. Representatives from all the friendly species come here to share knowledge, trade resources, and solve problems together." "You're offering us membership in this council?" Vexthal asked eventually. Tommy replied, "But first, you would need to prove that you can be trusted, that you won't attack peaceful settlements, or capture children who are visiting their grandparents." The reference to his own capture made several council members shift uncomfortably. "What would we need to do?" Admiral Thexmore asked. Tommy held up his toy, which had returned to its simple wooden form. "First, acknowledge what you've done wrong. Apologize to the families you've hurt. Make amends where possible." "The hegemony does not apologize," one of the military representatives declared. Tommy nodded sadly. "Then the hegemony will remain alone among the stars, watching the rest of the galaxy grow and learn while you stay isolated on your few hundred worlds." The chamber fell silent again. Outside, through the great windows, they could see human ships holding position around Nexus Prime. The ships weren't threatening, but their presence was a reminder of the choice the hegemony faced. Council Speaker Vexithol looked around the chamber, reading the faces of his fellow representatives. Fear, pride, anger, and hope all struggled for dominance in their expressions. "Child," he said finally, "what guarantees do we have that your people will honor any agreement we make?" Tommy smiled. "The same guarantee you have for any relationship, trust built over time through keeping promises." He paused. "But I can tell you this. In 12,000 years of spacefaring, humans have never broken a treaty or betrayed an ally. And if we refuse your offer?" "Then you continue as you are," Tommy replied. "But you do so knowing that the galaxy is much larger and more wonderful than you imagined, and that you chose to remain outside of it." Vexthal looked at the holographic display showing the vast network of human civilization, then at the small child who had revealed truths that changed everything the hegemony believed about their place in the universe. "We will need time to consider your words," he said finally. Tommy nodded. "Of course. These are big decisions." He looked around the chamber one more time. "But while you're thinking, remember this. My grandparents chose to live simply because they found joy in growing things and building things with their hands. They never threatened anyone or took anything that wasn't freely given. But you attacked them anyway because you thought they were weak." He held up his wooden toy. "Sometimes the most powerful things look very simple on the outside." With that, the human child fell silent and waited for the hegemony to choose its future. The Hegemony High Council deliberated for 18 hours. Representatives argued, shouted, and even came close to fighting as they struggled with the impossible situation. Outside the council chambers, reports continued to arrive from across hegemony space. Every world remained surrounded by human fleets, but no aggressive actions had been taken. Commander Zextai waited in the observer's gallery with Tommy, watching the proceedings. The human child had been given food and water, but had shown no impatience with the long delay. He seemed content to sit quietly and occasionally answer questions from council members. During one of the brief recesses, Admiral Thexmore approached them. Her expression was troubled. "Child," she said to Tommy, "I need to understand something. Your people have the power to simply take what they want from us. Why offer negotiation at all?" Tommy looked up at her with those bright green eyes. "Because taking things by force is wrong, even when you're strong enough to do it. But we attacked your settlements. We captured you. Don't your people want revenge?" Tommy was quiet for a moment, thinking carefully about his answer. "Some do," he admitted. "Uncle Marcus was very angry when he heard what happened. He wanted to disable all your ships immediately and make you learn better." Admiral Thexmore felt a chill at the casual way the child spoke of disabling entire fleets. "But grandmother talked to him," Tommy continued. "She said that making people learn through fear doesn't really teach them anything. It just makes them scared and angry. She said real learning happens when people choose to be better. Your grandmother sounds very wise, Tommy smiled. She's the one who taught me to carve. She says patience and kindness can shape things better than force. He held up his wooden toy. This took her weeks to teach me. I got frustrated and wanted to quit lots of times. But she never got angry, just kept showing me how to do it better. The implication was clear. Humanity was prepared to be patient with the hegemony's learning process, but they expected genuine effort to improve. When the council session resumed, Council Speaker Vexthul looked exhausted but determined. Representatives, he announced, we have heard testimony that challenges everything we believed about our place in the galaxy. We have learned that our actions against what we believed were primitive settlements were actually attacks on citizens of a vast civilization. Murmurs ran through the chamber. We have also learned that this civilization, despite having the power to destroy us completely, offers us a chance to choose a different path. Vexthul paused, looking around the room. The question before us is simple. Do we acknowledge our mistakes and seek to do better, or do we maintain our pride and remain isolated among the stars? The vote, when it came, was closer than many expected. 147 representatives voted to accept humanity's offer of eventual membership in the galactic community. 112 voted to maintain hegemony independence and reject any outside influence. But in hegemony law, a simple majority was enough. Council Speaker Vexthul stepped forward to address Tommy directly. Child of humanity, the Hegemony Council acknowledges that we have acted wrongly. We attacked peaceful settlements because we believed strength gave us the right to take what we wanted. We captured you because we saw only a primitive youngling instead of a citizen of a great civilization. Tommy nodded encouragingly, as if Vexthul was a student reciting a difficult lesson. We formally apologize for these actions, Vexthul continued, and we request guidance from your people on how we might make amends and eventually prove ourselves worthy of joining the galactic community. Tommy smiled broadly. I'll need to talk to my family about the details, but that's a very good start. He held up his wooden toy again, and it shifted into its device form. A gentle chime filled the chamber as he activated a communication system. Grandmother? It's Tommy. Yes, I'm fine. The Hegemony Council wants to apologize and learn to do better. He paused, listening to a voice only he could hear. Okay, I'll tell them. The device returned to its wooden form, and Tommy looked up at the assembled representatives. The Council of Worlds has been monitoring our conversation, he announced. They're pleased with your decision. Grandmother Sarah says she'll be here tomorrow to begin discussions about reparations and educational programs. Admiral Thexmore stepped forward. Educational programs? You'll need to learn how galactic civilization really works, Tommy explained. How to communicate with other species, how to trade fairly, how to resolve disputes without fighting. It's a lot to learn, but humans are good teachers. And if some of our people refuse to accept these changes, Vexthul asked. Tommy's expression grew serious. Then they'll need to stay on Hegemony worlds until they're ready to behave properly around others. The galaxy is a big place, but there's no room for people who hurt others for fun. Over the next few hours, the details were arranged. Tommy would be returned to his family immediately. Human advisors would come to each Hegemony world to begin educational programs about galactic law and customs. Reparations would be paid to the families of the attacked settlements. Most importantly, the Hegemony military would be restructured as a defense force only. No more expansion through conquest. No more attacks on peaceful settlements. As Tommy prepared to leave with his escort to rejoin the human fleet, Commander Zexthai approached him one final time. Tommy, he said quietly, I need to ask you something. What is it, Commander? Who are you really? I mean, besides being a human child visiting his grandparents. Tommy grinned. I'm exactly who I said I was. I'm Tommy Chen. I'm 9 years old, and I was staying at my grandparents' farm when you arrived. But you speak like someone much older. You know about galactic politics and military strategy. All human children learn about the galaxy, Tommy explained. We think it's important to understand the universe around us. And when you live for a very long time, you pick up a lot of knowledge. Live for a long time? Tommy's grin widened. Humans solved the aging problem about 8,000 years ago. I'm actually 237 years old. But I still like playing with toys and visiting my grandparents. Zexthai stared at him in shock. A 200-year-old being in the body of a child. with the accumulated knowledge of centuries but the wonder and joy of youth. Don't worry, Tommy added kindly. When the hegemony is ready to join the galactic community, you'll learn about life extension too, along with all the other benefits of civilization. As Tommy walked toward the departure bay, he turned back one more time. Commander Zexthai, thank you for not being cruel to me during the journey. I know you were just following orders, but kindness still matters. Then he was gone, escorted by human officers to rejoin his family. 2 days later, Grandmother Sarah arrived at Nexus Prime aboard a ship that looked like a work of art. She was a small, elderly human woman with silver hair and the same bright green eyes as Tommy. She carried a wooden staff carved with intricate patterns and spoke to the hegemony leadership with the patient authority of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall across the centuries. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders, she told the assembled council. Your species has great potential, but you've been like children playing with weapons instead of learning to build. It's time to put away the weapons and start building something beautiful. Under her guidance, the transformation of hegemony society began. It would take generations to complete, but for the first time in their history, the hegemony was building something based on cooperation rather than conquest. And somewhere among the stars on a peaceful farm world, a 9-year-old boy who was really 237 years old continued to learn wood carving from his grandmother, surrounded by gardens and the gentle sounds of a civilization that had learned to choose wisdom over warfare. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders indeed, and now the hegemony would have the chance to see them all. But first they had to learn the most important lesson of all, that true strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose mercy when you had the power to destroy. It was a lesson that would serve them well in the thousands of years of exploration and friendship that lay ahead.